As you go through your martial arts journey, certain things your teachers say will stick with you more than others. And sometimes they'll be perhaps seemingly innocuous or even obvious things, but things that you weren't necessarily cued into at the moment. And sometimes very ordinary and obvious things can be very profound because it was just a blind spot that you had. And possibly the best lesson that I ever got from any of my teachers, and this came from Sifu Angela. Let me give you context first. Is we're speaking between a camera, and if you haven't met me in person, like I'm not huge, but like I'm a big guy, right? I'm 6'2". I'm around 260 pounds these days. I'm not a small person. And it is very easy for me to just get caught up in doing me stuff because for most of my martial arts career, even though I had aspired to be a teacher fairly early on, I was mostly just training myself and trying to get better. And I was not approaching it as somebody that was training to be a teacher. And one of the things that Sifu Angela did for me was she gave me a chance, especially once I had reached instructor level, but even prior to that, is helping out with the new students, with the beginners, and trying to show them the ropes while she worked with the more advanced students and all that. And every once in a while she would walk over and check on how we were doing, and sometimes she would interject in, "Solomon, that's fine, but don't ever teach that to a woman." And it was just a gentle reminder of not everybody is as big as you, not everybody is as strong or athletic or whatever. And sure enough, I have encountered this multiple times since I became a teacher. And that is the fact that just because you understand how something works mechanically doesn't mean that it's going to have a one-to-one transfer to the next person, because you're going to have different attributes and different abilities. There was one of my favorite stories from early on. This was, after, this was at our first location in downtown Phoenix. And I had two students working together, and one was shorter than the other. And everybody else was, ballpark similar, but this was a little bit, and this wasn't like a huge disparity. This wasn't like me and my wife, like a whole head's difference. This was only a couple inches, but it mattered. And we were working on a technique. I think it involved Bong Sao, and because Bong Sao is a little tricky for elevation differences. And this guy was having trouble with it, and he was very visibly frustrated, but you could tell he was being a trooper. He didn't want to complain or anything like that. And I was sitting there watching and watching. I'm like, why isn't he able to make it work? Why isn't he able to make it work? He's doing all the things. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're too short for the way that I showed you. And we made adjustments on how it worked. And it was just a matter of a height difference. I think in this case, it was trying to catch the move earlier when the arm was more bent, so he had more margin to play with, something like that, right? Because shorter people tend to have to jam in to take away the advantages of having longer reach or a height difference or whatever. And the point is, like, that's not the only time that stuff like that's happened. That's just the most amusing story, the most obvious, the big story. But little things like that happen all the time, where it's just like, oh, here's how I do something, and it's like, I just can't make it work. I had one guy that had very, very short fingers, so it made grabbing a little bit difficult. And he wasn't a short guy, he just had small hands, and so we had to make adjustments for that. And so between my Sifu telling me, hey, don't treat people like they're you, and now having years and years of experience of having students who aren't me, it gives you some perspective. Now, I've seen people say, oh, what can you learn from a big guy? Big guys just fight like big guys. They're not going to be able to teach you anything. You should learn from somebody small. There is a little bit of truth to that, right? Because if you learn from somebody who has to be more technical because they don't have just the natural attributes to overpower or overtake somebody easily, then yes, I mean, somebody who's more technical and can transmit that information is going to do well. But it's not a guarantee that somebody who's smaller, more technical is actually going to be a better teacher, because teaching is a skill in and of itself. You actually have to learn how to teach. I mean, some people have a knack for it. Some people are kind of in the middle. I think I'm kind of in the middle. And some people really just do not have a knack for it. There's a lot of people who are very, very good, like championship level fighters, and they couldn't produce, even a fair to middling contender for their, if their life was on the line, because they don't understand how to transfer what they know to somebody else. They don't know how to work with people to do that. Now look, there are some people out there that are absolutely stellar teachers and coaches. They're rare. But the fact is that teaching is a skill in and of itself. And if you ever aspire to be a teacher, or if you find yourself being thrust into the role of a teacher, kind of like Ip Man did. Ip Man never wanted to be a teacher, but when he moved to Hong Kong, it was kind of what he could do, so that's what he did. And so if you find yourself in that position, whether it's voluntary or matter of circumstance, spend some time learning how to teach. And hopefully over time, I'll be able to gather some of the at least statistical resources to help you guys, that are interested in being teachers or coaches, or even just good older brothers as training partners, or older sisters, whatever. But the point is, you need to spend some time learning how to teach. You need to spend some time outside of your own head and outside of your own skill set. There is a lot of truth to that old axiom of when one teaches to learn. There are so many variations on that quote, going back to Greeks and certain Asians and modern people. It's a phrase that's been around and around and around, and it is a very, very valuable thing. You should at the very least be able to mentor somebody and help them troubleshoot, and even that is a bit of a skill in and of itself. So it is something worth taking time to learn, but it absolutely was one of the best and most eye-opening lessons that anybody was ever able to teach me, because it was so salient to my end goal, right? Brief story, and I'll wrap this up. When I started doing Wing Chun, I had come in from doing amateur MMA, right? I'd been training for MMA for something in the ballpark of about 6 years, and it was one of those things where, like, I already knew how to fight. Like, at least at the rudimentary level, I already knew how to fight. I had my Kempo and my kickboxing background, and through the MMA training, I had gained some basic understanding of grappling. And from there, I didn't need somebody to necessarily teach me how to be able to fight. I needed somebody to teach me something more systematic and technical, and that's exactly what I found with my Wing Chun Sifu. And I tell people this all the time. Look, with traditional martial arts, it very much depends on the school and how they approach training. If you don't know how to fight, there are many traditional martial arts schools that will not teach you how to fight. However, if you already know how to fight, you can pretty much go to anyone, learn the system, and retrofit it onto your fighting ability and figure out how it plugs in. Again, you might have to kind of educate yourself on how to do that, because honestly, like, retrofitting stuff is kind of like teaching. You have to be able to break things down and understand them in a way that you can reverse engineer them and put them back into your skill set. But the point is that a lot of traditional schools are a little weak on the actual fighting, and that's an unfortunate thing, because martial arts is absolutely about fighting. But if you don't need somebody to teach you how to fight, and you just really like something, whether it's just for personal edification or it's just something that kind of feels like a hole in your game or whatever, go and do it. You don't need them to teach you how to fight. If you need extra sparring practice that you're not going to get in that class, get some friends together. It's real easy to find people. I think it's real easy to find people to spar with. Every time I've said, hey, drop by the gym and come spar, I've gotten more people than I generally do just like to sign up for a class, right? It's lower cost, there's no commitment, you promise to go technical and light and you don't break that promise, and people are happy to play with you, right? So it's not that hard, there's open mats all over the place. I mean, look, if you live in a city or you live in a fairly sizable town, there's open mats available, there's seminars available, like there's all sorts of cool ways that you can get together with people. Like our MMA club was a university after school club. Like there wasn't like a coach. I was the striking coach because that was my background, and my buddy was the grappling coach because he had done some jiu-jitsu and stuff. And we just kind of hack and slashed it together, and every time somebody would join the club that had some previous experience, we'd be like, hey, share with the group. And that's, I mean, man, I wouldn't trade that for the world. That can be rough though, because if you don't know how to teach, man, your results are going to be kind of haphazard. But anyway, I can feel myself starting to ramble. Story time can go on forever, but I will definitely be repeating myself. So we're going to end it there. And just keep in mind, right, if you have any aspirations to be a teacher, or even suspect that you might be in any kind of mentorship role, please take the time to learn how to teach. Get outside of yourself and really try to analyze things from the perspective of, this person is not me. How do I go from ground zero to function without putting myself in as a filter? Very difficult to do, but it is a learnable skill, at least to a degree. And I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources, or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.